Hi, today I want to talk about the Panasonic GH4 camera that I took out the other day to do some photography. Boy, was I wrong about this camera. Let's talk about it. So the other day I took out the Panasonic GH4 to do some landscape photography. Boy, I was definitely wrong about this camera. I was a bit biased towards the Micro Four Thirds camera. I thought, it's not going to do a great job compared to my Sony A5000 or the Nikon D7000. I was wrong, definitely. If you can, I'll show you the image right after this video, and the image is, to me anyways, amazing compared to the now the Nikon D7000 is a league of its own. I can't really compare that to this camera because that camera, I love the manual control of that Nikon D7000. So definitely that, it's a league of its own. If you're doing manual focus, manual control and all that, manual photography, Nikon D7000 wins for sure. But we're talking about just general photography. Now this camera, what I find is that, I thought I could treat this camera like my Nikon D7000 and a Sony A5000, doing manual control and all that. I can't really do with this camera because because I'm not familiar with it yet. Initially I set everything to manual, even controlling the lens itself, and I just find it, the color that comes out of that, it overexposed, the color doesn't look very nice. So I end up, forget about that, and I set it to actually AI, auto mode. And using the touch screen, I find that that's the way to go. Okay, so if it's your first time using it or a couple of times using Panasonic, I would avoid the manual control for now and just use the AI auto mode and touch to focus. You get 99% of the shot that you want. It's amazing, and especially if you look at the screen itself, it's allow you to, this is great for vlogging, by the way. But what I like about this camera that that beats the Nikon D7000 and even the Sony A5000 is that the ability to rotate the screen, and this is great for you want to compose a shot in an angle that's kind of very hard to do. This thing can do that. It's just amazing. You see that? It's amazing. This kind of shot, tilt and all that, allows you to take photo that you never thought you could do. So that's very important to have that ability to see different angle. What I also like about this camera is that the EVF electronic viewfinder is amazing compared to the Nikon D7000. That's they have the optical viewfinder, and I find that it's not as useful as the electronic viewfinder. The reason for that is because what you see is not what you get for the Nikon D7000. I had to look at the screen itself in order to see what kind of shot I got, like was it overexposed, underexposed. Where the EVF, I can see whether I have overexposed the image or underexposed. You can't even say that about the Sony A5000 because they don't have an EVF, so I can't compare it to that. Another thing I love about this is all the buttons that it contains in the GH4. It has the ISO, it has the white balance and exposure meter and all that stuff. So, and also as all the feature that Sony A5000 has, in addition, the battery power on this Panasonic GH4 is equivalent to the Nikon D7000. It lasts very, very long. I have one battery, and I could take photos throughout the whole day without worrying that it's going to be draining. Whereas my Sony A5000, yes, I have one right here. It's quite small, and it can take around 450 shot. Now, to a lot of people, that's a lot, right? But compare that to, let's say, the Nikon D7000 and the Panasonic GH4. They can go over close to anyway, and some say even 1,000 images. I never take more than 8. I think the most I ever taken a given day is only about 700 images. So yeah, and I don't have to worry about that. it has an unlimited recording, video recording, so it can go beyond 30 minutes. It's like almost like a video camera, and it is in fact a video camera. It can do 10-bit 422 1080p, and if you have a special modular component, you can do 4K 10-bit 422, although that modular unit component is very expensive, so I wouldn't worry about that. But doing 1080p 10-bit 422 is more than accurate. Most of my video that I'm doing on YouTube, or I think that's more than sufficient. In fact, if you're doing short film on YouTube videos, a documentary on YouTube videos, yeah, this is the camera to have for videos. Of course, it doesn't have the in-body stabilization, but you know what? If you have a nice gimbal, you don't even have to worry about that. I would say this camera, Panasonic GH4, wins for both video camera and daylight photography. Notice I say daylight photography. I haven't tried the night photography yet because of the micro four thirds sensor. I think it won't be able to capture as much light as my Sony a5000 or the Nikon D7000, because it has those camera is an APS-C camera, larger sensor, whereas this is a smaller sensor. Now, if you have the right lens, of course, like for example, I have this prime lens, the 25mm f1.7, very wide aperture, so it's able to bring in a lot of light. So in that case, maybe you don't have to worry about so much about it. Now, even though if as it goes darker, like say in a low light situation, it does give a lot of noise, but I think the noise coming from the Panasonic GH4 is film-like. So even if there is some noise in there, I would still appreciate the noise because it's more like film grain. So you can have that effect on this camera as well. Now, this camera, if you're setting to do low light shot, I would say don't stretch it beyond 800 ISO. In fact, I would say set it around 400. For me, I'm comfortable at 400, maybe 600-ish ISO. I think this camera, but above 800 and above, I think it's kind of stretching it. Okay, unless of course you have a very wide aperture lens, maybe that's a different story. But yes, for the GH4, I think 4 to 600 ISO is, if you're you worry about noise and you're very picky about that as a filmmaker, yeah, I would stick with that. Okay, the Sony and the Nikon D7000, the Sony a5000, I think you can go all the way to 1200 ISO without any issue. Above 1600 or 16 and above, 1600 ISO and above, I think those two APS-C camera can also be a problem too. Again, it depends on the prime lens, how wide aperture it is, but still, overall, I would say this camera wins it all. Okay, if you are worried about doing night shot and all the noise, just bring up the flash, and this Panasonic GH4 has a flash built in anyway, so don't have to worry about that. So overall, this camera for daylight photography, and if you're doing night photography, just bring up this flash, and the video quality on it is amazing. It wins for both categories. Okay, daylight photography and video, this camera does it all. I think I definitely recommend this over the Sony a5000. Now, if you're doing manual photography, the Nikon D7000 wins it. The Sony falls somewhere in between. It's not good in both, but it does a good job for vlogging. It is a bigger sensor, so if you want that, don't have to worry about too much noise and all that, and you don't have that much light, then the Sony a5000 fit in that category. But photography-wise, because of AVF, it doesn't have it. I'm not sure about photography in general. Like if you're, if 50% of your thing is about photography, I don't think I recommend the Sony a5000. But if you're into vlogging, more video, Sony a5000 isn't bad. It's actually quite good because the bigger sensor is probably better for low light than this camera here. But overall, if you have the right light setting, if photography, you want to do that as well, and you want to do video, this camera wins it all. Okay, definitely highly recommend it. Panasonic GH4, amazing. Have a look at the image right now. This is all photography, by the way. This video is about photography. Again, have a look at that. Thanks for watching. EducateTube.com.